Skip, most studies point to career guidance as central to solving the school to college and work transition. What structural barriers or contextual issues need to be addressed to provide the greatest return of what we do?
Well, one thing that comes to mind related to that is I've had the opportunity to participate in the Career Development and Public Policy Symposia that have been sponsored by OECD and held throughout the world since 1999. And I have to tell you, so we get 30, 40 countries participating in those symposia, and we really focus on what the respective federal policies are related to career development and the kinds of interventions that are happening as a result of those policies that support those interventions. And every time I go there, I kind of duck my head in terms of what's happening in other countries and what's not happening in the United States. So first off, I think at a kind of a macro level, there is no federal support for this, or very little. You know, if we could get the words career guidance in the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, what a great accomplishment that would be. And I think that's one barrier that I think we all, in a policy sense, need to advocate for very strongly. And again, it's embarrassing when I compare what we do here, what we don't do here, and what's done in many, many other countries. We've talked about the piecemeal application of career development services and how much sense that doesn't make. And so I think we do need to be focused at a more of a whole school approach that is comprehensive and systematic across all levels. I had the opportunity just once, I'm sorry to say, but just once I had the opportunity to go into a school system and do that. We had the elementary school counselors, the middle school counselors, the high school counselors together, and for a week we developed a comprehensive career guidance program that they were going to implement then across their school system. So the middle school counselors knew what the elementary school counselors were doing related to career development with their students. The high school counselors knew what the middle school counselors were doing related to providing career services to their students. And there was that seamless sort of application of career development programming that was, I think, quite impressive, but unfortunately quite unique as well. But I want to come back to the hope theme that a couple of us have mentioned, and we really need to study people like you, Bob, because your story is so impressive, and how you're able to maintain hope despite the many challenges that you encountered in growing up. And as we know, many students are not able to do that. And if you look at our literature even related to hope, the role of hope in career development, you'll find very little addressing hope specifically. We kind of assume, I guess, that it'll happen, it'll kind of come along if we just keep working with students in some ways, and often that does occur, but often it doesn't occur as well. So what I would say we need to be focused on more intentionally is the need to create a sense of hope within students. And so could I do just a quick exercise with you? So if you could just think of 3 goals, very quickly, 3 goals that you would like to accomplish in the next 3 years. 3 goals that you'd like to accomplish in the next 3 years. If you could just jot something down real quickly, it's only take a couple of minutes, but 3 goals that you'd like to accomplish in the next 3 years. Please do your own work on this. And then for each goal, just identify a couple of things that you could do between now and then to increase the probability of that goal occurring. Got it? So what are some steps that you could take to increase the probability of your achieving that particular goal? You know, take a course, do some kind of specialized training. Don't do any training. Don't take a course. Some things that you could do, some steps that you could take to increase the probability of achieving that goal. And then finally, if you could look at each goal you listed, look at the steps that you identified, and then in a very honest way, give yourself a rating between 1 and 5. 1, this is definitely going to happen. I will take these steps to achieve this goal. 5, not going to happen. One, definitely going to happen. 5, it's just not going to happen. Give yourself an honest rating, but make sure your names are on these papers. So, in this group of very high-functioning folks, obviously, maybe you all said, you know, here are my goals, and I'm absolutely going to achieve all of these. This is definitely going to happen. I know what to do, and I'm motivated to do it. But imagine if your ratings were 5 for all of your goals. It's just not going to happen. It's not likely to happen. Here's a goal I can identify, but it's not likely to happen. Right? I don't know how to make it happen. Even if I know how to make it happen, I'm not likely to move forward in that direction. I don't have the support to move forward in that direction. So for many of the students that we work with, that's their situation. And if we simply assume that they're all one, they're all running everything one, that they're just going to jump in there and do what they need to do to achieve their goals, we're going to miss out, and that's what we're doing, I think, in many cases. We're going to miss out on opportunities to help those students, and we can do that, I think, simply by teaching them specific sorts of skills that are directed towards increasing hope in their lives, and its goals, pathways, and agency are the 3 components of creating hope-based interventions.
Thank you, Skip. And I would say Skip's work related to hope is probably leading the field in new conceptual models, so his literature is quite wide as well. Phil, you've spent 35 years in many countries training and supporting counselors. What have you learned from that in 3 minutes?
To me, the issue of scale was always an issue, and we talked about, we heard about Europe. In 11 cities now, 6,000 people have been touched. This program has touched several hundred, several thousand, whatever. I've always been crazy enough to think that in some small way I could actually change the world, and I was only interested in things that were the best in the world. So I'm going to talk to you about scale. I was fortunate enough to I did not invent it, but coordinate a project called The Real Game, which ultimately went to over 100,000 classrooms in 15 to 20 countries around the world. And when you think about that, that's classrooms spending 20 to 30 to 40 hours on something, and multiply that by the number of kids, that's touching quite a few people. And that's about imagining you're not who you think you are. You're a person 15 years in the future trying to create a life for yourself. And they all come back from that. And Barb, the superintendent in Napa, can tell you about the fun that we've had in making it happen there. When you get a glimpse of a future that excites you, and you believe that it's possible, and you've got hope, anything is possible. And it doesn't just change the future, it changes everything right now. So, and I think, touching 100,000 classrooms was pretty good. I'm fairly proud of that. But I have to tell you that it's way fewer than that now. It's probably fewer than 50,000 classrooms in the world, because governments have all changed, funding patterns have all changed. Even though everybody knows that program changed lives, it cost too much time. It took too much time away from academic curriculum. It was guidance, which is not high on the priority list. So the program I'm with now, Career Cruising, I think you'll like these numbers. We're in 80% of all of the secondary and post-secondary schools in Canada. We're in 80% of all of the public libraries in Canada. We're in 75% of all the employment centers in Canada. That's pretty good scale, I think. It's 100,000 conversations every day with Canadians about their career dreams and concerns. But the program, as great as it is used superficially in 90% of the places where it's used. The math teacher can't answer the career question, points the kid to the guidance counselor says, go talk to career cruising, that'll sort you out. That's like saying you got a math question, go look at the textbook, come back next year and tell me if you resolved math 10. You know, it just doesn't work that way. We have to put much, much more of a priority. Problem, you're going to tell me. The problem is that counseling isn't working. In spite of incredible programs and incredible people and incredible research and incredible ideas, most counselors didn't go there because they gave a damn about careers. It's about psychosocial or academic advising. Many of them are wrapped up in administrative duties and don't have the time. Most of them, there's very little prestige for counseling in most schools. You know, the math teachers and the science teachers are the cock of the walks, and guidance is somewhere way down the list. So I think the whole system, I'm agreeing with everybody here, and Lourdes, I think the entire education system should be totally fixated on one thing: preparing students for success now and the moment they step out of school. We've got a problem in Canada. We do well on the PISA scores. You know, we're top 5, top 10, always. So our education system likes to pat itself on the back. But you know that we've got 50% now of young people coming out of our colleges and universities, and we've got the highest post-secondary rate in the OECD, stepping into either unemployment or underemployment. They've got their degrees, they followed their dreams, they followed their passion, they did what everybody told them. And now they've stepped out into debt and confusion about what to do next. They don't know how to handle financial literacy. They don't know how to handle a whole bunch of things about managing a successful life. So the whole curriculum, I mean, we focus and measure the wrong things. We really do. And it's about a system justifying itself. It's not about a system preparing kids for success. And when we could start measuring hope and optimism and confidence and excitement and intentionality and purpose and direction, then we'll have something. But we're not there now. I'll leave it there.
Thank you, Phil, very much for the passion you brought to the world, for sure, in that area. Bob, would you talk a little bit about, from a state perspective, what can states learn from your South Carolina model?
In the year 2000, when I assumed the state directorship of career and technical education, actually in 1998, we began to develop a statewide system to evaluate career and technical and to reform it in terms of delivery as well as programmatic reform. And we developed a 2020 vision at that time with 10 principles in that 2020 vision. And in fact, when I left the department July of 2011, we were in the process at that time of revisiting that 2020 vision. As that moved forward, part of the effort then, once that reform took place, was to look at legislation that in fact would create the opportunity for districts to be able to implement programs that would support the reforms that were in fact taking place. And so with about 5,000 people providing input both online and regional meetings, in fact, Bill Daggett came into our state to lead a lot of those regional meetings. We developed a piece of legislation called Education Economic Development Act, EEDA, June 2005, that set forth a pathway system that connected PK through 20 to be able to provide students several things. One was to develop the opportunity for the elementary school level, and we talked about it here with the panel, to create a comprehensive career awareness system that in fact begins to build the foundation of career decision making. And in the middle school, assessment would occur, and in that assessment, the highest interest would be identified. And from that was the requirement that there would be an individual graduation plan developed that would be electronically driven. And in fact, that would be a flexible plan with parent and student and counselor meeting on an annual basis through the year 2000, during the 10th grade, where they would make the final decision on a career major. So our system was built around majors, pathway system. In career and technical side, it's delivered through completers to make sure that there's a 4-course sequence that connects, prepare the students for those majors. And there were basically 5 important aspects of the legislation. Through the pathway system, one was to increase completion rate, which has occurred. We've had the fastest growing completion rate of any state in the country in regards to high school graduation. Also to make education rigorous and also relevant. Part of that was to create a dynamic shift to where PBL was a focus of the delivery of the education. Also increase support for high-risk students of dropping out, and then to promote a seamless transition between high school and post-secondary that would allow and provide dual credit, and where that system would be eased. And in fact, the legislation established a committee of 40 that was actually housed at higher education to create a dynamic shift, a paradigm shift of the seamless transition. And then to eliminate the discussion between career and college and career and technical and college prep and AP and the other kinds of labels that we place on students, to move to a pathway system. In our state today, we've reduced calling career technical or AP or honors to move toward schools of study, all the 16 clusters within that system, where students actually move through a pathway system. It's a career planning system. And where you're going to be a welder or a cardiologist or a brain surgeon is that you're moving toward a career. Our superintendent calls it a superhighway, in which there are many exits. Exit to complete GED, certificates, 2-year associate degree, 4-year. Some go off the highway and come back on at different points. But it is about choice. And so that students have and feel free that on that highway are all students. Some exiting and some going further. But they're all in it together without being labeled. So I think the legislation created a system of career development that focused on the student's strengths and a system that supports career decision making to enable students to be able to make choices based upon assessments and based upon career planning.
Thank you, Bob.